I'd like to call the Spotsylvania County School Board meeting of Monday, November 23rd to order. We do have a quorum. Ms. Grant, Mr. Blaine, and Mr. Laura out this evening. Ms. Blaylock, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, Mrs. Blaylock. Just a reminder, everyone, please silence your cell phones. May I have a motion to approve and adopt the agenda, please?
I'll second.
Motion by Mrs. Blaylock, second by Mr. Braswell. All those in favor of the agenda, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, 4-0. We have a public hearing this evening. The Spotsylvania County Public School Board will conduct a pre-budget public hearing today, Monday, November 23rd. And I'm going to call that to order. Is there anyone, Dr. Martin, is there anyone that was signed up?
No, Ms. Daniels? No, we don't have anyone on the list.
There is no one signed up for the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would care to speak on the budget for our public hearing this evening? With that, I see no hands going up. I'm going to close the public hearing and move on to item 3.01, scenes from Freedom Middle School. Ms. Flinard.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Baker and Dr. Martin. Tonight, Freedom Middle School will present highlights from Annie Jr. The show is under the direction of Susan Dane, choral director, and Catherine McNichols, the 7th grade science and civics teacher. Annie Jr. was presented at Freedom Middle School on November 17th and 18th. The profit from Annie Jr. will be going to the Freedom Tigers for Life team to assist the American Cancer Society. Tonight, we will feature 2 scenes. Ms. Dane?
Good evening, school board members, administrators, parents, friends, colleagues, students, and community members. It's a privilege for us to be here this evening to share several scenes from Freedom Middle School's recent production of Annie Jr. I'm Susan Dane, I'm the choral director, and my cohort in crime is Mrs. McNichols. She teaches 7th grade life science and civics, so she's not even involved in the fine arts regularly, but we of course feel it's very important for our students. We just want to point out that this was kind of a collaborative effort because we had several alumni from Chancellor High School come back to assist us. Aaliyah Chaudhry, a senior, served as our stage manager, and Shannon Barnes, a freshman from Chancellor High School, served as our choreographer. In addition, you'll see this evening Abigail Starkey, a student from Smith Station Elementary School who is featured as Annie's best friend Sandy in our production. Through our ticket sales, we were able to raise over $500 for our Tigers for Life team, something we're very thankful and appreciative for. We want to thank the FMS administrative team, our community, and you, the school board, for your continued support of the fine arts in all of our schools. To quote Dr. Terry Bergeson, Washington State Superintendent of Public Instruction, "The arts are an essential part of public education. From dance and music to theater and the visual arts, the arts give children a unique means of expression, capturing their passions and emotions and allowing them to explore new ideas, subject matter, and cultures. They bring us joy in every aspect of our lives. We must continue to find a place for arts programs and partnerships, not only for what it teaches students about art, but for what it teaches us all about the world around us." Without further ado, we will present 2 scenes from Annie Jr. Scene 1 is set in the New York City Municipal Orphanage, the Girls Annex. Annie is trying to sneak out in the dark of night to leave the orphanage to search for her parents when she is caught by Miss Hannigan.
Where's that?
around. I said turn around. There. Now what do you say? What do you say?
I love you, Miss Hannigan.
Rotten orphan.
I'm not an orphan. My mother and father left a note for me saying they loved me and they were coming back for me.
That was 1922. This is 1933. Now get up! For this one shenanigans, you'll all get down on your naughty little knees and clean this dump till it shines like the Chrysler building.
But it's 4 o'clock in the morning.
Get to work.
Yes, Miss Hannigan.
Now! Why any kid would want to be an orphan, I'll never know.
It's a hard knock life for us. It's a hard knock life for us. Static treated, we get kicked. Static kisses, we get kicked. It's a hard knock life. Got no folks to speak of, so it's a hard knock row. We hoe cotton blankets instead of wool, empty bellies instead of full. It's a hard knock life. Don't it feel like the wind is always howling? Don't it seem like there's never any light? Once a day, don't you want to throw the towel in? It's easier than putting up a fight. No one's there when your dreams at night get creepy. No one cares if you cry in the tree. No one cries when your eyes get wet and weepy. From the crying you would think this place would sing. Oh, empty belly life, rotten smelly life, full of sorrow life, no tomorrow life. Santa Claus we never see.
Santa Claus, what's that? Who please?
No one cares for you a smidge when you're in an orphanage. It's a hard knock life. You'll stay up to this stuff shine like the top of the Chrysler building. Yank the whiskers from her chin. Jab her with the safety pin. Make her drink a Mickey Finn. I love you, Miss Hannigan. Get to work. Strip them beds. I said get to work. It's the hard knock life for us. It's the hard knock life for us. No one cares for you a smidge when you're in an orphanage. It's the hard knock life. It's the hard knock life. It's the hard knock life.
As ladies stand, Miss Hannigan come out. Molly can come out. There we go. And ladies step out. There we go. In our second scene, Annie has successfully hidden in the laundry cart and escaped the orphanage. She's hiding out in the Hoovervilles that have popped up all over the city, trying to stay out of harm's way and not attract too much attention to herself as she searches for her parents. She has just had an encounter with the local dog catcher who has moved on to find where all the dogs are hiding.
Hey, there's one he didn't get. They're after you, Annie. there'll be sun. Just thinking about tomorrow clears away the cobwebs and the sorrow till there's none. When I'm stuck with a day that's gray and lonely, I just stay on my chair and grin and say, the sun will come out tomorrow, so you gotta hang on till tomorrow. Come what may, tomorrow, tomorrow, I love you. Tomorrow, you're always a day away.
Hey, you, little girl, come here.
Yes, officer?
That dog there, ain't he a stray?
A stray? Oh, no, officer. He's my dog.
Your dog, huh? So what's his name?
His name? His name is Sandy. That's right. I call him Sandy because of his nice sandy color.
Okay, let's see him answer to his name.
You see, officer, I just got him sometimes.
Call him.
Here, Sandy. Here, boy. Sandy. Good Sandy. Good old Sandy.
Next time you take him out, I want to see him with a leash and with a license, or else he goes to the pound.
Yes, sir. I understand.
Now get along with you before you catch your death of cold.
Well, I don't mind the weather. Stuck with a day that's gray and lonely, I just stay on my chair and grin and say, the sun will come out tomorrow, so you gotta hang on till tomorrow. Come what may, tomorrow, tomorrow, I love you. Tomorrow, you're always a day away. Tomorrow, tomorrow, I love you. Tomorrow, you're always a day away.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Oh, my goodness. Okay, moving on to item 4.01, Fine Arts Recognition. Ms. Flenard.
Thank you again. We are displaying artwork in the boardroom, the foyer, and school board offices from 5 of our schools. This month, we are showing artwork from Courthouse Road Elementary, art teacher Carly May, Freedom Middle, art teacher Andrew Beckers, Chancellor High School, art teacher Carlos Moore, Spotsylvania High School, art teachers Frank Carr and Amy Lacerna, and Massaponax High School, art teacher Carter Corbin. We celebrated these student artists previously with certificates of appreciation at a reception held in their honor prior to this meeting beginning.
Thank you, Mrs. Flenard. Is there anyone are there any of the teachers or students that were with their artwork presented this evening that would stand for us? Thank you. Wonderful, thank you. Okay, Ms. Flenard, junior and senior regional orchestra recognitions.
Yes, ma'am. On September 26th and October 6th, we had the following students audition for senior regional orchestra or junior regional orchestra and earn a place into this group. This is extremely difficult to do as they were competing against students from Loudoun, Fauquier, Prince William, Stafford, and of course Spotsylvania County. The senior regional orchestra includes students from grades 9 through 12, and the junior regional orchestra includes students from grades 7 through 9. If you would like to hear these students perform in the North Central Regional Orchestra, please come join us on November 14th at 4 p.m. at John Camp High School. The students for senior regional orchestras are from Chancellor High School, and students, if you hear your name and you are here this evening, if you would please come forward to be recognized. From Chancellor High School, we have Oliver Kriska, violin 2, Kimberly Louie, violin 2, Ben Ransom, trumpet. Ben also successfully auditioned for the All Virginia Jazz Band and traveled to Norfolk to perform with this group this past November 18th through the 21st. And Ben is the only student in Spotsylvania County Public Schools that qualified for this group this year. From Cortland High School, we have Christian Nikki Saludes, violin 1, Megan Chappell, viola, Tyler Furman, cello, Sean Carl, violin alternate 4, and Molly Mansfield, cello alternate 2. I believe we do have this student. From Massaponax High School, we have Timona Mims, violin 2. From Riverbend High School, we have Emma Leedy. And for the junior regional orchestra, the following schools and students. From Chancellor Middle School, we have Rachel DeTore for bass. And I believe we have middle school student who also participated in Annie, so thank you for that. We have Cornelius Ellis, the viola. From Nye River Middle School, Anna Thompson, violin, as well as Abigail Lady, cello. She placed with the highest score. And from Spotsylvania Middle School, I believe we have Caroline Van here, who played the violin. And Thornburg Middle School, Nathan Richardson, violin, and from Massaponax High School, Jacob Ma, cello.
Can we do a group shot? Okay, look this way. 1, 2, 3. One more just to make sure. 1, 2, 3.
Ms. Flanard, if you could continue with 4.03, the Superintendent's Award.
Yes, sir, thank you. The November Superintendent Art winner for Outstanding Visual Art goes to Lauren Drake. Miss Drake. Miss Drake is an 8th grader at Freedom Middle School, and her artwork will hang in Dr. Baker's office this month. We would also like her art teacher, Andrew Beckers, to come forward to be recognized for their outstanding achievement.
One more just to make sure. 1, 2, 3.
Continue with 4.04, if we could have Ms. Gaines offer the recognition for Employee Compensation Focus Group, along with Ms. Colbert. Thank you.
Good evening. The Finance Department and the Office of Human Resources co-chaired an Employee Compensation Focus Group. The primary goals of the focus group were to engage division and community stakeholders in the review of Spotsylvania County Public Schools' current salaries, benefits, and pay scales for all employee groups in comparison to neighboring divisions, as well as to develop a long-term compensation proposal in order to attract, recruit, and retain highly effective teachers and staff. The group convened a total of 4 meetings and actively participated in discussion to identify and prioritize considerations for the school board in preparation for upcoming budget seasons. Additionally, Hanover Research provided assistance in facilitation of the process. Please join us as we extend our gratitude to the following members of the Employee Compensation Focus Group for their commitment and dedicated service. When I call your name, we ask that you please come and join us. Deneen Basili, Jean Bergeron, Sarah Calveric, Barry Dickinson, Cheryl Gray, Heather Hanchins, John Helsley, Paulette Heron, Robin Monroe, Joe Pisani, Alicia Reynolds, Lynn Riggleman, Chantel Sims, Bridget Smith Hurd, Marcia Stevens, Jan Strike, Leah Underwood, LaShawn Gaines,
Michelle Colbert.
Guys, can you come over here? We'll get a good shot. Down a little bit. Dr. Baker, can you take one step to your right, and then everybody take one step left? All right, my right, stage right. All right, everybody look this way and smile, please. One. Okay. 1, 2, 3. One more just to make sure. 1, 2, 3.
Moving on to public comments. Oh, sorry. Yes. Do we have a?
Thank you. If it pleases the board, I would like to take a moment to recognize one of our students who was able to just arrive this evening. From Thornburg Middle School, we have Nathan Richardson, violin. So Nathan, if you could please come up.
Let's take your picture real quick.
We have to fully embarrass you, Nathan, while you're taking the picture.
1, 2.
Maybe. Let me grab my phone. Got it.
One more, just make sure. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you so much, Nathan.
So congratulations to, once again, all the award recipients. And then moving on to public comments, item 5.01. Dr. Martin, could you please fill us in?
Good evening. The public comment segment of our board meetings is a time to receive recommendations, suggestions, concerns, and comments from the general public. Each speaker is allotted 5 minutes, and we ask that they clearly state the name, address, and/or voting district for the board. A speaker may request additional time from the board should one's 5-minute allotment expire. We ask that you keep your comments focused on the issues and that all speakers maintain a level of decorum and mutual respect for one another. At this time, Madam Chair, no one has signed up to speak.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Is there anyone in the audience that would care to speak for public comments this evening? Seeing no one, I'm going to close 5.01 and move on to 5.02 and go on to board member comments. Dr. Meyer, I'll start with you this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to extend a special thanks for our students and staff in the fine arts for their excellent work. It's interesting that we just came from a state convention of school board members, and one of the speakers emphasized, I'll say really emphasized, the importance of creativity on the part of our students and joining that with the use of technology. It was interesting to hear the speaker, who was a general who came back from service in Iraq and Kuwait, and he emphasized creativity. He said, you may not think of it, but creativity is essential. It is essential that our students exemplify that in their studies and in their work, and the fine arts allows that to happen. So please do not cut your fine arts programs as you look for ways to reduce your budget. He really emphasized that, and it came out this evening, seeing our middle school students. I also like to say a special thanks to my fellow board members for their support in that I was chosen as the Northeast Regional Chair for school boards for 13 school divisions, including Spotsylvania. And a special Thanksgiving greetings. Thank you. Special Thanksgiving greetings to everyone and safe travels for everyone. Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Mrs. Blaylock.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. I would just want to echo his comments on fine arts. What a wonderful performance tonight. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was a treat for all of us. I would also like to recognize Mr. Twigg in the audience. I'd hate to do this to you, but don't mind to stand because this is one of our newest school board members. He has jumped right in and been there with us. Let's give him a round of applause. Coming off a recent win in his election, so we look forward to having him seated up here with us beginning in January. Also, congratulations to Massaponax High School football team and the Cortland Cougars that have both advanced in the playoffs, so we'll be continuing to watch them on Friday night. I know Mr. Braswell and I have a vested interest in that. The other comment I had I really wanted to share with everyone is the school board had their very first budget work session where we really sat down and kind of began to roll up our sleeves and talk about what this next year is going to look like. And I was just extremely pleased and very happy at the start. It was such a good, positive, powerful meeting. A lot went on the table and there's a lot of work to do, but there's no doubt in my mind that Spotsylvania County Schools is in the right direction, and I'm just so pleased with Dr. Baker and his staff, who always focus on children and learning first. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And to that, I yield the floor.
Thank you, Mrs. Blaylock. Mr. Braswell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a few comments. I want to pretty much ditto everything that Ms. Blaylock said in terms of all of our athletic teams for the fall sports. What a great job by all of them. I want to commend all the coaches that took time to spend quality time with our young people so that they can be all that they could be. And the evidence is their performance on the playing field. It's something I've always said, and I believe it to be true, especially as we watch the young folks render that great play from Annie, that the schools are more than just testing centers. They're schools. And because of that, we need to emphasize not only the fine arts, but music, technology, and allow our students to be all that they were created to be. And we have a responsibility to nurture that, and we have a responsibility to provide resources for our children to be all that they were created to be. So with that being said, I'm excited and delighted that our staff has provided us with a lot of what I would call a good start to a fabulous budget year. We're looking forward to tackling big problems and going about it in a way that puts our students first. I think Dr. Baker was very clear in what he said, that he wanted the budget to be restorative. He also wanted it to be innovative, and we're looking forward to sustainability in this budget so that this Spotsylvania County School Division can continue to move forward. With that being said, I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Braswell. And then I'm just going to say thank you for everyone's comments. With the fine arts, I know that a lot of the schools have winter concerts coming up over the next few weeks. So if you can make it out to the schools, check the calendars of all the different schools and see what is out there, because I've mentioned this before. Wonderful performances. You can see the talent in all of our schools. And then Thanksgiving. Everyone have a nice time, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And with that, I'm going to move over to 5.03. Dr. Baker.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. I'll be brief. I appreciate the board's acknowledgement of our work session that we had last Monday, and I also think that it was a good, solid foundational beginning for the FY17 budget season, and I appreciate the board's engagement, and I know that you were given a lot to peruse and a lot to consider, and I appreciate the hard work and research that you're doing even as we speak. I thank our staff for putting together what I think was a comprehensive set of materials and things for you to consider as we contemplate launching this budget. At our conference that we were participated in this past week, I am still optimistic and hopeful that our governor is a man of his word as it pertains to K-12 education being the #1 priority in the state's biennial budget. We hope that we are able to see that when it comes out in December. Certainly there is some caution that we heard as it pertains to the costs of Medicaid and some other competing interests for this budget that we'll need to watch carefully in terms of how we go about building ours. But thank you for your acknowledgement and work with the budget process. I just want to also, the little production of Annie that we got to see, the scenes from that, if that doesn't lift up your spirit, regardless of what you're going through, I'm not sure what will. It was an outstanding job, and having a background in the arts, I get to have a basis for comparison. Having seen and participated in a lot over the years, I would certainly put not only the above and beyond brand of staff that we have that spend so many hours working with our students and their talent, but also the quality of the performances, the quality of the artwork that we see across the board here in Spotsylvania County, I would put up against just about anybody. And so I want to congratulate. I'm very thankful for that. Also continue to be thankful for our students over the past several weeks. I always thank our principals for allowing me the time to have with the students for lunch. And this year, some of the questions that I am asked by students are so thoughtful, and I come away, it's somewhat therapeutic. They are so caring, and they are so interested in not only what a superintendent does, but in their own dreams for the future. And we have many aspiring leaders, even at our early grades here in the county. And then finally, I want to say I am thankful for the staff that I get to work with each and every day here, from my executive staff to the many leaders we have in this building. It's a wonderful compliment, though a little bit scary to me, how many people find that they are envious of the staff that I have been able to surround myself with, and I just say that's okay, but hands off. They're mine, they're the school boards, they're Spotsylvania counties, but I am blessed, and so I want to make sure I acknowledge that as we go into the Thanksgiving season. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. Moving on to item 6.01, elementary report card, committee update. Mrs. Flenard and Mr. Mudd.
Good evening again. I'm sure Mr. Mudd will need this a little bit higher than I do. Since 2012, the kindergarten through second grade report cards have been structured to include a standards-based format. And after review of the standards-based reporting over the past few years at these grade levels, revisions to the existing document and practices in reporting progress are necessary. And since the 2012 rollout, teacher leaders, liaisons, as well as administrators have been investigating and researching a similar reporting format for grades 3 through 5. Tonight, leadership will provide an update to the committee's work.
I will make a little adjustment here. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board, Dr. Baker, Dr. Martin. I do come this evening to share with you a special report regarding elementary report cards. And what I share with you this evening is really a reflection of conversations among many, many teachers and administrators really over the course of the past few years. And as a result of conversations from the past few years, we have found it necessary at this point to formalize a committee and look to see where we are now and where we may want to go moving forward with report cards. The current committee is co-led with me, along with Principals Marcy Fields, Carol Ann Luter, and one of our teaching and learning coaches, Marilee Grubb. The current report card committee is a sampling of K-5 teachers, including content liaisons, administrators, and those folks have been meeting for the past few years to work on constructs of draft report cards and give continuous feedback. Current elementary report card committee does consist of 24 members, including at least one from each of the 17 elementary schools. Those members include teachers, administrators, content liaisons, instructional coaches, district administrators, and parents. What is a standards-based report card? And part of our work is investigating and thinking back to what we've done leading up to this point and making sure we have a common understanding of standards-based report cards. A standards-based report card measures student proficiency based on SOL standards for an entire school year. Standards-based report cards report progress to parents using a coded 1, 2, 3, 4 system for each standard within a subject. It does not report a single grade for an entire subject area, which is really the biggest visual difference that one would see between what we currently use and what a standards-based report card is. And again, we do use a standards-based approach at K2. Why we may want to use a standards-based report card. Standards-based reporting has been in practice for nearly 20 years. I wouldn't say that this is a trend or a fad. It's really been a practice in place throughout the United States, and there's various levels of implementation that currently exists across the Commonwealth of Virginia. We would consider a standards-based report for averaging grades and reporting a single grade over the course of a marking period. And that, as I mentioned, that practice has been in place. Looks like we have a little, are we good? All right. Research indicates that this practice does not, current practices do not necessarily accurately report a student's progress. So when we look at averaging grades, what that communicates to a parent versus a standards-based approach, research is lending itself more towards standards-based approach. The research also indicates over the past 2 decades many benefits of a standards-based reporting, most importantly, more specific and targeted communication about student progress for parents. This information here is one practitioner's look at reasons why you may want to consider a standards-based approach. And those include the need for grades to have meaning and what's behind what a teacher's reporting to parents, needing to plan differently and collaborate. Standards-based reporting lends itself to differentiated instruction and a better understanding of the standards that we need to teach our students. We control grading practices by developing a consistent understanding of mastery of a standard. Standards-based grading does reduce paperwork that may seem meaningless to some. It also helps teachers to adjust instruction, helps us to look at what quality instruction and really what quality assessment looks like. And it's a launch pad for other things, particularly the PLC culture, which is very much a part of Spotsylvania County. Currently, where we are in Spotsylvania, as Ms. Flanard mentioned, we do have a standards-based report card currently implemented in kindergarten through second grade, and that has been in place since 2012. The decision to move to that at that time was really a response for a need to better communicate progress of the students over a period of time for teachers, and then how to better communicate that progress to parents. Discussions have started recently regarding the possibility of transitioning this practice to grades 3 through 5. Our current committee work. Currently, our committee is working to revise the current kindergarten through second grade standards-based report card. There are some revisions that are needed to keep up with current standards and things that we need to do to transition to a different reporting process for K2. It also includes training teachers and assisting implementation of a revised report card leading up to and throughout the 2016-17 school year. So if indeed we do make changes to the kindergarten through second grade report card and the committee has recommendations, that would need, along with that, we would need to include some training for teachers. We also would be looking to review and research feedback and comments related to the possibility of moving and implementing a standards-based report card at the 3 through 5 level. As part of thinking of where we are now and why we may move in this direction, really for the past number of years, Spotsylvania County has been moving towards looking at a formative assessment and making changes with formative assessment and coming up with common ways of assessing our students. And that is ongoing in Spotsylvania County at this time. We want to align our work with assessment with how to best communicate that progress with parents. This slide here shows next steps. December 2015 is our next committee meeting. We had a kickoff meeting in November. We're looking into December. Teachers and teacher resources will be put in place for teachers, including a feedback portal that we're going to be putting in place for teachers to provide feedback to us, as well as committee meetings, and we also have some parent forums that we put in place as well. In January, our committee work will continue, and at that time we'll be making plans for future meetings and communication to parents and teacher training. We will also continue some parent forums at that point as well. Parent forums will be an opportunity for parents to come out to learn more about what a standards-based report card is and perhaps develop better understandings even at the K2 level of what their understanding is now and better address some questions they may have. And at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding our current progress. Everything is still very much a work in progress, and we look forward to the additional work of our committee in the next couple months.
Thank you, Mr. Mudd. Ms. Billylock has some questions.
Thank you, and thank you for that presentation. Very nicely done. It was very informative, but I just need some clarification. We talked about the K through 2, looking at possibly changing that due to standards changing. I'm assuming this is for a state changing the standards, because I feel like we just changed their report card yesterday.
Right.
I mean, I literally feel like we just did this.
Well, we did. Back in 2012, we absolutely did.
I have K through 2, and they're still, they were here in the beginning of it, so.
And really, looking at the report card, it would really be a work in progress, really continually. For example, in the near future, we're going to be receiving some updated standards in social studies. So we're going to need to be able to include those standards on the report card to most accurately demonstrate progress to parents with the most up-to-date standards.
So do you see it more as just building off the work that was done in 2012, or is this a total change yet again? Because that was a big change.
Right. I don't think parents would see that report card as a major change. the biggest changes they may find would be the standards changes, as well as an understanding of a better understanding of what the 1, 2, 3, 4 means
Right.
when looking at a child's journey across an entire school year.
Okay. And what's the rationale behind this change? Is that something that is coming from the state, or is that something that we have decided on the local level that needs to be emphasized?
And which change?
More communication to the parent about the 1, 2, 3, and 4, and what does that mean? Those type changes.
Yes. So through our work, teachers are communicating with us that they that a better explanation for parents, especially as a new parent comes into the school system and they are may not be familiar with a standards-based approach, or if a kindergarten parent is new and is unfamiliar, that the teachers don't feel like there is enough communication for parents to understand how that works and how to best communicate the progress.
Okay. And what's the difference in the K through 12 that you're K through 2 that you're looking at, and the 3 through 5? Would there be a big change in their reporting?
Well, if we move forward with 3 through, excuse me, I need a drink of water. If we move forward with grades 3 through 5, we would need to, that would be a big cultural change for the school system, which is why we need as many hands and as many thoughts and comments, and the work of our committee will really put that in place.
Because in 2012, it was strictly K through 2 that had the major change.
That's correct.
We didn't do anything at that time with 3 through 5.
But that conversation has never ended.
Okay.
That work really has continued, and the conversation moving towards 3 through 5 has been part of that work. But we certainly recognize that change at 3 through 5 will involve quite a bit of discussion first before the decision's made. And then once, if and when that is made, a lot of teacher training and support for teachers and communication to parents.
Okay, final question, I promise.
No problem.
So is the rationale behind the entire movement, is that mainly coming from community, staff? What has caused this committee to form and want to move forward in new directions as far as reporting to parents on the report cards?
Sure. I think your question, that last question is a big question.
Yeah.
I think it really comes to what works, what is not working now in the way that we communicate to parents. And I don't think that is specifically Spotsylvania County. I think that is in the field of education, what is the best way for us to communicate a student's progress. One example I may give you that may outline for the public or anybody that may have that question in mind is, if you were to have a child who, let's say they do well in all areas except for math, and the student gets various grades throughout a marking period in the current system that could range anywhere from F to A and end up with an A, thank you very much, end up with an A at the end of the marking period. Thank you, that's better. Would end up with an A at the end of the marking period. That information shares how that child is doing on average. But if you're a parent who really wants to support, who's looking to support your child in the areas that they may not shine, that A doesn't give them a whole lot of information about what parts of math they may be struggling with. In a standards-based approach, you're looking at each individual math standard that may have been taught over the period of 9 weeks. And a parent is really getting an updated progress note on each individual area as opposed to just one grade for the marking period. Okay. So in looking, your question was, why would the committee move towards this or think about this? I think it really started with the movement with K2 and how we best communicate at the K2 level. And is that something we need to think about at the 3-5 level? What do our averaged grades communicate now? And what do we want them to communicate with? In addition to that, I mentioned that there's been ongoing work on assessment, and there's been a lot of discussion about assessment, and those conversations have been taking place in PLCs in the individual schools and in faculty meetings, and we've talked a lot about assessments and what the assessments assess. We haven't talked a whole lot about how we best communicate what these assessments are telling us to parents, and the report card is really for the parent. So that's really the question that the committee is looking at, and why we would have gotten to this point is because we feel like at the K2 level, we do need to make some changes at the K2 level, but we feel like that piece is being reported in a way that teachers are pleased with how communication in regarding the subject over a period of time is reported. And I think the question lingers, do we feel that same way about 3 through 5?
Okay.
And that's where we're looking at right now.
Well, I mean, anytime we're looking to improve, I support it, and I like that. I mean, just a couple of things I would note is I would want to make sure we don't put anything else on the teacher's plate that, like they don't have enough, because that's always a concern when we're adding something or changing something, that we don't add too much to them. And I wanted to make sure that this is something the community wanted and was supporting and it's parent friendly at the end of the day, because really you said it perfectly, the report card is for the parent. So those were just some things I would look at.
In our first committee meeting, there were some, we have a number of parents on the committee. One of the parents who was there did speak up and really and was a parent who had been through the standards-based report card with their child, but really had quite a few questions about it. And that really speaks to what the teachers were telling us, that we need to provide more communication about what this is to parents. And the light bulb went on once we were able to communicate, but that's why we need parents on the community, because we need them to tell us, what do parents who are non-educators need to know about the way we communicate student progress? And that's going to be a tremendous benefit to our group. And
that will be very advantageous to have parents that are actually the end user
absolutely
to give their feedback as well.
And as I mentioned, we do have parent forums that are scheduled, and those are designed to explain what the standards-based report card is, and really address any questions they might want to bring up at those meetings. And we will be advertising those shortly.
I really like that idea. Thank you for reaching out to the community. Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Bullock. Mr. Braswell.
Mr. Mudd, I like the way Ms. Blaylock asked some of those questions. I'm going to ask it in a different way, though. Why are we changing it? Is it broke? Who said it needed to be changed? What resources are we expending to change a system that we've used for I don't know how long? And how do we know that the current system is woefully inadequate in comparison to what's being proposed?
I may need you to ask some of those questions again for me, but I'll get started, and then you tell me where I need to fill in some holes for you. First, in regards to why and is the system broken, I would not say that the current system is broken, but I do think that we need to look at what is research telling us that is best practice. And one of your questions was, how do we know? There have been a number of research articles, many books, that have been published regarding grading and grading practices and what is best. And I've asked myself that same question, and interestingly, when I go to look up advantages of averaging grades or type in a number of different possibilities, I am unable to find any research on current practice of what we've been doing for a very long time. But when I type in those same words, what does come up is a lot of research, a wealth of research regarding best ways to communicate progress of how a student's doing over a period of time, and it lends itself to more of a standards-based approach. So there isn't anyone out there saying averaging grades is a broken system. There may be people out there saying that. I'm not necessarily hearing that. But I think where we are is that we've come a long way with assessment. An assessment is one of the components of what we do as teachers, and it's the way that we help ourselves to measure how students are doing, and it's a way for us to communicate to parents how their child's doing. And as I mentioned earlier, one thing when we ask ourselves that question, we can say consistently it hasn't been enough dialogue about how to best communicate with the parents. And that's what I think keeps tugging teachers and administrators who are talking about standards-based reporting, and this particular committee, a number of the questions that have come up either through teachers or through the committee members themselves, that is the direction that we keep going. What is the best way? And when we look that up to see what others around us are doing, there are a number of school divisions in Virginia that have moved to a standards-based reporting approach, some at the K2 level, a number of them at the K5 level, and research really throughout the United States regarding a standards-based approach to reporting.
Okay, so you answered the first portion of my question. Now, in terms of resources in terms of teachers' time, resources in terms of dollars and cents, how is it an advantage for us to switch to this new system?
It is certainly an advantage to the parent. A parent will receive much more targeted feedback on their child's progress and growth. As far as teachers, that is a concern. That is a concern that teachers are voicing. You know, how will this change? And Ms. Blaylock mentioned earlier, will it put more on our plate? Interestingly, in fact, one of the things I shared this evening is that that folks who have moved to this system feel like it's actually removed a lot of paper from a teacher's work bag at night because we're looking a little more holistically at a student's progress over time. I think that the advantage to teachers once trained and once given the proper information and have time to look at the research and look at what they're doing currently and how to best make a shift if that's the direction we end up going in. The advantage to teachers will be a feeling that they feel that they are accurately portraying how a child's doing over a period of time. And I go back to that example. Math is a great example because there are so many things that happen in the course of a unit of math. And there are some things that students are really strong in math on and some that they have weaknesses in. And right now we communicate one thing about math to parents in our current system. A standards-based approach would give us an opportunity to share a lot more information about specific standards and progress on those standards to parents.
And finally, and my final is not necessarily a question, but you'd mentioned that there are other divisions that are transitioning or using this approach. I would like to hear what data was gleaned from those divisions in terms of the effectiveness of this standard-based approach as compared to what has become pretty familiar with everyone else in terms of averaging of grades.
Sure.
I would like to hear that for one, just so I get an idea that it makes sense to me. So thank you for your presentation.
And I'll add, we can certainly provide that in the future, a future report. Along with that, our work leading up to this point has involved looking at a number of divisions, some of whom have had this practice in place for about a decade or more. And some of them are our neighbors and some are farther away. And I'm aware of a division that just recently implemented this school year after a 2-year study of it.
Okay.
So there is information out there that we can gather.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braswell. Dr. Meyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Mudd, thank you for enlightening us. It's interesting to hear, what has transpired since 2012. Sometimes when I think of the word standard, I would like to substitute the word skills. Because when I think of it, and I taught 5th grade, and I think of those skills that I was trying to teach those youngsters, because when I say when I hear the word standard, I think of standards of quality, standards of, of accreditation, and I don't associate the word standard, I do with a skill. I identify more with that word. So I truly understand when there's skills that you're trying to teach and how do you communicate to parents as a child is learning and mastering certain skills. My question to you is, if you're looking to tweak K through 2, what then is the timeline that you're looking at for if we're going to make the switch to 3 through 5? What is the anticipated timeline?
I think that really remains to be seen, and is really very much a part of the work of the committee and the many voices and opinions they're going to be gathering to help make decisions moving forward. Kindergarten through second, adjusting the current report card document is certainly a lot easier because that piece, the standards-based piece, is really part of what kindergarten through second grade teachers are already doing. Moving forward, looking at 3 through 5, there have been, the work with 3 through 5 really has been going on for the past few years. I think the question we need to ask ourselves as a committee is, in what way do we roll out? We have considered, do we roll out 3 through 5 all at one time? Would we consider a rolling approach, maybe third grade one year, fourth grade another, fifth grade another? And I think that those are decisions that the committee will land on and make recommendations and do that after hearing from all the folks that they're going out and talking to and bringing that information back to us.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. So I'm looking at it, so we'd have to definitely train the teachers because this would be a new way of grading. A lot of formative assessments, but then being able to keep track of what standards the students are mastering or where they may need more support. So with that, I'm seeing that there could be more targeting for remediation of skills, and then even possibly more enrichment activities when students are being very successful in one of the standards. Okay, and then I like the idea of the rolling, starting in the third grade versus a fifth grader who's getting ready to go to middle school, changing when getting ready to go to middle school. Right. So I kind of like that idea of rolling it in. And then, so do the new social studies standards come out next fall? Is that when they are? Okay. Okay. So because I know I've seen them, I just didn't know for sure. And then I know they're rewriting the math standards as we speak.
Right.
So that would be another couple of years or so for the math standards would have to be updated as well.
Our goal is really to find a structure that will allow us to make these updates easily so the document doesn't look very different to a parent or to a teacher, and that when the DOE does make a change in standards, that is something that we'll be able to roll right into the current structure as opposed to having to do kind of what we're doing now and restructuring, but trying to land on something that will work and be a document that we'd be able to use with ease as these changes happen. As you know, these curriculum changes happen every few years, it seems like. So.
Okay. Well, thank you. Anybody else have anything else? Nope. Thank you very much. Very informative.
As Mr. Mudd's taking his seat, I'm going to let him go.
With my water.
Yeah. I did want to thank him, and I know we have some of our principals are here in the front row who have been a part of helping to facilitate these powerful discussions of potentially moving or extending our standards-based grading approach. And I would let the board know, and again, this is just from my perspective, I think some really good questions were asked about the current system of grading. And I think it's always has been and it always will be a very heated debate regarding what is the best way to grade, which is why I believe as a system, not just ours but others, we often have a lot of different variations on the same theme. So I wouldn't say that the system is broke, but I think that our variations on how students' progress is best measured can sometimes vary to the extent that in the end it may not always be in the best interest of our students, and it may not give us the ability to best share how students are learning. what their performance levels are in a more concrete fashion, what they look like. And so I appreciate the process that we're going through. I can speak to the board about being at a number of different faculty meetings and receiving feedback from teachers and staff that varies greatly, from why should we do that to what's taking you so long, from some of the K-2 teachers whose colleagues within the same school at grades 3 through 5 are certainly chomping at the bit to get that rolling. So we understand that there's a pretty wide spectrum of perceptions related to it. I will continue to ask the committee that is researching and driving this forward to, and we've talked about staff perceptions and parent perceptions, but again, what is in the best interest of our students? If there is an area of educational reform, if you've heard that term before, that I would call the final frontier, it is grading, because we have not changed grading practices much over the course of the last century. We've changed a lot of things about how we approach learning for students, but that's one that has not been changed, and it's because it is a very difficult change. So I think many of the questions that you asked tonight were very good for, I think, our committee to hear, particularly the way that we would transition, the types of trainings that we would provide to make sure that this is not an added burden, but that it is more liberating, that it is more empowering for teachers and better information for students. And most importantly, as we seek in our strategic plan to better engage our parents as part of that learning process for their children, this is a perfect way to help bridge some of that gap. So thank you, Michael, and thank you, board, for some really good questions.
Thank you. Moving on to 6.02, board committee reports. Does anyone have any reports this evening? Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. Dr. Martin, could you tell us what is on the consent agenda, please?
We have the minutes of the November 16th, 2015 budget work session and donations which are usual and customary. Staff asked that the agenda be approved as presented.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted?
So move, Madam Chair.
Dr. Meyer, and a second by Mrs. Blaylock. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 4-0. Thank you. Okay, moving on to action item 8.01, approval of revisions to School Board Regulation GBMAR. Ms. Colbert.
Good evening, Madam Chair, to the members of the board, to Dr. Baker and Dr. Martin. The Classified Employees Grievance Procedure affords non-licensed personnel the right to dispute the recommendation of a demotion or dismissal of employment with Spotsylvania County Public Schools. The proposed revisions to the regulation streamlines the process and better aligns with Virginia Code. Furthermore, the proposed revisions have been recommended and supported through legal counsel. Staff recommends that the school board approve the proposed changes to the regulations as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Colbert. May I have a motion to approve the revisions to GBMAR?
So move, Madam Chair.
Motion by Dr. Meyer. May I have a second, please? Second by Mr. Braswell. Any comments or questions? I just have a question. Is this, a lot of this is state code? Is that what the changes are?
A lot of it is, and it really does not change the timelines per se, but it just streamlines how the procedures actually read. Some of the revisions that are captured there are things that naturally happen in the process that have been removed from the language. For example, specificity in terms of communication with the principal. Those are things that are conversations that are naturally happening anyway. So it better aligns with the process that we exercise with our licensed personnel.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all those in favor of the approval of GBMAR, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? 4-0. Thank you. Okay, and now you're still up. Approval of awarding of the Medicare retiree Part D contract.
The school division issued a request for proposal for Medicare retiree Medicare Part D coverage. The procurement was advertised on eVirginia statewide electronic procurement website, published in the Freelance Star, and posted on SCPS purchasing website. The evaluation committee, which consisted of 3 individuals, individually reviewed and scored each proposal submitted. Once the scoring was complete, the scores were sent back to purchasing, where the scores were then compiled and the top scoring proposal was identified. Negotiations were then conducted with the top scoring offerer. Anthem was selected as the most qualified offerer based on the evaluation factors stated below. You will see it captures the ability to provide current, high-quality services, implementation of services, and ease of transition, proposed costs, experience, and qualifications. The RFP Evaluation Committee is recommending contract award to Anthem for a period of 1 year with 4 years of annual renewal options.
Thank you. May I have a motion to award the Medicare retiree Part D to Anthem? Motion by Mrs. Blaylock. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Braswell. Any comments or questions? Okay, Mr. Braswell.
Ms. Colbert, I noticed on your criteria for evaluating which carrier would receive the contract, that costs were weighted at 20% as opposed to implementation of services. Why was costs considered so low?
One of the things that we take into consideration with this particular contract award are the retirees. We want to make sure that we offer them a service that is equivalent to what they're currently getting and that it is best aligned with what they currently have. In terms of the cost, it is of no cost to the retirees, and we as a division, we absorb the cost for them, but our biggest concern was the disruption of the medications and the formularies as it impacts the retirees.
Okay, so it's the cost. The key word is that the cost, we're absorbing their cost, and so that's why cost was considered at a lower rate.
And then again, given the population that we're serving through the benefit, we really are concerned about the disruption for them.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm going to abstain in voting because as a retiree of the school division, I'm a direct beneficiary of the Part D benefit as was explained by Mrs. Colbert. So to avoid perception of impropriety and conflict of interest, I will abstain.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Okay, any more questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor of awarding Medicare Part D coverage to Anthem, please say aye. 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 All those opposed?
Abstain.
3-0 with 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 8.03, textbook adoption. Ms. Blako.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Baker, and Dr. Martin. In accordance with our local textbook adoption policy, IIAA, Spotsylvania County Schools has reviewed and selected 2 textbooks under consideration tonight. The first textbook is AP Environmental Science. Written specifically for AP Environmental Science course, Friedland and Relier, Environmental Science for AP 2nd edition is designed to help students realize success in the AP Environmental course and on the exam. In the new edition, each chapter is broken into short, manageable modules to help students learn at an ideal pace. Do the math boxes review quantitative skills and offer targeted practice on the math students need to know. to succeed in environmental science. Module AP review questions, unit AP practice exams, and full-length cumulative AP practice tests offer unparalleled integrated support to prepare students for the real AP Environmental Science exam in May. The new edition features digital-based learning powered by Copia Class, which is a vendor that the state has recommended. The second tonight is Collections. It's a language arts textbook for grades 6 through 8. It is developed to meet the increased rigor of state standards. Collections of topically linked complex texts, including more informational texts and literary nonfiction, drive instruction and critical analysis. Comparative analysis from text to text and text to self is something that is very prevalent on our SOLs and in our standards today. Collections provides both print content for instruction and application, as well as the necessary tools for digital learning. From a single dashboard, users navigate robust digital resources, including online annotation tools, My Write Smart, Turnitin Originality Checker, interactive lessons for writing, speaking, and listening, motivating Explore magazines, the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt FYI site, and to further enhance learning, Channel 1 News, Text in Focus, Stream to Start, and History, A&E, and Biography videos capture interest and illuminate content. Collections provides digital, in-depth instruction needed to analyze complex texts, determine and explain evidence, reason critically, and communicate sharply. Along with solid instruction, Collections provides the critical modeling, scaffolding, guided practice, and independent practice in resources such as the Close Read screencasts, integrated standards lessons, the Close Reader, performance tasks, tutorials, and performance assessment. It is truly a reading, writing, speaking, listening, integrated digital content, as well as a traditional textbook as well for the classroom. It is administration's recommendation that pending the acquisition of carryover funds designated for the purchase of textbook and resources, it is administration's recommendation that the school board adopts and purchases the textbooks as recommended.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adopt the textbooks as recommended? Mrs. Blaylock, may I have a second?
Second.
Second, Dr. Meyer. Any questions or comments?
Nope.
I just, looking over on what you said, Channel 1 News, is that would be free, that the students would be able to watch? Now, would some of these be, because I'm just looking at across the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
So we've purchased it for English classes, but maybe social studies classes could be watching that.
Absolutely.
And then the same with when you mentioned history and A&E and bio, are those videos that come with it?
So the example that I saw when the textbook rep came was a poem on the Vietnam Memorial. And then they had another article that they had updated and that the kids could compare the two. And then there was some video footage of Vietnam War and, related news topics from that time. So it really is kind of multi-sensory, if you will. Very engaging. And these are student licenses, so every student will have a license, so certainly they could access this content in other areas.
That's awesome. You had something, Mr. Braswell?
Thank you, Ms. Blako. I clearly understand the need for ensuring that our textbooks are current and up to date. My question deals with, what do we do with the old textbooks?
Those are recycled. Every year in the summertime, we have a textbook recycler that comes and picks up the text for us for free and reallocates those to either in need or recycles them appropriately. Any other questions?
Any more questions? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of textbook adoption of the AP Environmental and Middle School English books, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 4-0.
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, moving on to 8.04, social studies credit requirements. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Baker and Dr. Martin. The Virginia Department of Education allows school divisions to add graduation requirements that exceed the minimum state requirements. In December of 1996, Spotsylvania County Public Schools requested to add a fourth history credit as a graduation requirement. On December 18, 1996, the Virginia Department of Education approved this request. Spotsylvania County Public Schools has required 4 history credits since the 1997-98 school year for both advanced and standard diplomas. Since 1996, graduation requirements have changed at the state level. Virginia now requires an economics and personal finance class. In some cases, this course is being taught by history teachers. By reducing the number of history credits from 4 to 3, standard diploma candidates only, we are bringing our program in line with other surrounding school divisions. It is administration's request to reduce the number of required history credits from 4 to 3 for standard diploma candidates only beginning in 2016-17. This reduction means that we are following the Virginia Department of Education graduation requirements as noted in Virginia Code.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the changes of the social studies credit requirements? Motion by Mrs. Blaylock. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Mr. Braswell. Do I have questions or comments? Mr. Braswell. So, okay, this is for, you said standard diplomas, but the our students that are going for an advanced diploma would still be required to take the 4
Yes,
social
Virginia
studies
Department
classes.
of Education requires that for an advanced studies diploma.
And
4
then
credits.
there's two of them are verified credit?
1 for history.
1 for history?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just needed a little clarification. Wonderful. Thank you. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the social studies requirement for graduation change, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? 4-0. Thank you. Okay. Informational items, all usual and customary. Thank you, Mrs. Flenard. Okay, moving on to 10.01, unfinished business. Does anyone have any unfinished business? Okay, 10.02, does anyone have any new business? No new business. Okay, moving on to 11.01, closed meeting. On November 23rd, 2015, be it resolved that the board conduct a closed meeting for the following purposes: consideration of candidates for employment, assignment, promotion, demotion, and discipline of employees or resignation of employees who have a contractual commitment to the board as permitted by 2.23711A1 of the Code of Virginia. May I have a motion to go into closed session, please? Motion by Dr. Meyer. May I have a second? Second by Mr. Braswell. All those in favor of going into closed session, please say aye. 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 All those opposed? 4-0. We are in closed session. Motion to re-enter open session.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Dr. Meyer, and a second by Mr. Braswell. All those in favor of re-entering open session, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 4-0. Certification of a closed meeting. Whereas the Spotsylvania County School Board has convened a closed meeting in this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.23711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such a closed meeting was conducted in conformity with the Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Spotsylvania County School Board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting. May I have a motion to certification of closed meeting, please?
So,
I'll make a motion that the certification be accepted.
Mr. Braswell? A
Second.
second by Dr. Meyer. We'll roll call vote, starting with Mr. Braswell, please.
Braswell, aye.
Shelley, aye.
Blaylock, aye.
Meyer, aye.
4-0. Dr. Martin, could you please read the items from the closed meeting?
Motion is that this board accepts the recommendation of the superintendent for personnel appointments, assignments, and resignations as presented in closed meeting and permitted by Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia.
May I have a motion for the items from the closed meeting, please?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Dr. Meyer, and a second by Mrs. Blaylock. All those in favor of the items from closed meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, 4-0. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Mr. Braswell, and may I have a second?
Second.
Second, Dr. Meyer. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? 4-0. We are adjourned. 8:29.